Dynamic Access Control is a feature in Windows Server 2016 that relies on many technologies to be able to function properly. Dynamic Access Control is an access control system for file resources. It's based on claims made during access to a resource. It can be used in 4 scenarios. Firstly, in the central access policy for managing file access. Secondly, for audit compliance and analysis. Thirdly, to protect sensitive data. And finally, to provide access denied remediation. Dynamic Access Control enables access based on values of attributes in Active Directory and enables access only from authorized devices. Dynamic Access Control is based on central access rules and policies. Rules can be created for groups, user claims, device claims, and resource properties. These rules protect resources and can be tightly controlled with conditional expressions, access control entries, and other expressions. Claims. This is a single piece of information about an object, such as an Active Directory Domain Services attribute which is associated with a user, a computer, a device, or a resource. You can use multiple claims to protect resources. You can set conditions to control access management. These conditions include the state of the device, its location, and any groups that the object belongs to. These are called expressions. Proposed permissions are the permissions that you enable to create a what-if scenario to test permissions before you apply them. To enable Dynamic Access Control, on a Windows Server computer, install the File Server Resource Manager role. Then enable claim support by using group policy objects. Configure the central access policy. One important aspect of file security is to manage file auditing. Before you can select which particular files you would like to audit, you must turn on auditing through group policy. Shown here is the local group policy editor, but you can also use group policy objects in the domain. Navigate through Windows Settings, select Security Settings, select Local Policies, and then click the Audit Policy node as shown here. You can then specify what it is you want to audit. For file type access, then you'll need to audit object access by selecting the Audit Object Access node, double-clicking and enabling the policy. You can then open up the File Explorer and specify what it is you're looking for. In this instance, we're looking for failed attempts by Andrew Warren to read and execute files in the C users Andrew Documents Pearson folder. So you can be very explicit about what it is you want to track. Once you've enabled auditing and specified what you want to record, you can then use the Event Viewer and specifically the Security Windows log to track what's going on. Audit successes and audit failures will be listed here in the central pane with details below. In Windows 10, sharing and securing printers is fairly straightforward. You can do most of this through Settings. Open the Settings app, click Devices, and then click Printers and Scanners. As shown here, you can then manage the various printers that you can see. You can view what's going on the particular device. You can open the print queue. You can open the printer app, which will allow you to configure the printer using the vendor provided software. You can print a test page, run the troubleshooter, and then view printer properties and printing preferences. If you have a local printer that you want to share, right-click the local printer from Control Panel and then choose Printer Properties. Then select the checkbox Share this printer and then give the printer a name. The name defaults to the local name of the printer. The option Render Print Jobs on Client Computers helps mitigate the effort required to render print jobs by making sure that that takes place on the remote client rather than on your computer. Down at the bottom here we've got the option for drivers and to install additional drivers. If you're sharing and the clients that are going to connect to your printer are also running the same architecture and version of Windows that you are, so for example Windows 10 Enterprise 64-bit, then you won't need to install any additional drivers. But if you've got client computers out there running, for example, Windows 7 or Windows XP, then you'll need to install additional drivers. This enables the client computers to connect to your printer and obtain the driver from your computer, rather than having to install it locally. Once you've shared a printer, you can configure the security. 3 objects are listed under the group or usernames list. Everyone, to which the print permission is assigned. That means that anybody can connect to your printer, and then they can submit print jobs. The creator owner object is a special kind of a group. It doesn't have predefined members, rather it has transitory members. So somebody who creates a print job is defined as being the creator owner of that print job. The creator owner group is assigned manage documents permissions. So in essence, that means that everybody can manage their own documents. They cannot manage other people's documents, however. And then the administrator's local group is assigned full control, in other words, all 3 permissions: print, manage this printer, and manage documents. You can make changes in a very similar way to how you manage file permissions by using the add and remove and advanced buttons. On the Advanced tab, you can configure a number of additional options. If you want to restrict when users can submit print jobs, select the Available From button and then configure a start value and an end value. Between those 2 times, users can submit print jobs and they'll be serviced by the print device. Outside of those times, they can't. If you have a single print device and want to assign it multiple priorities, so for example managers have a higher priority than regular users, then you can configure 2 shared printer objects to point to the same device, each with a different priority. Users connecting to the higher priority, that's with a higher numerical value in the priority field, will get their job serviced more quickly than those connecting to the shared printer with the lower priority value. Again, we can see a driver option here. If you want to install new drivers for different sorts of client, you can click the New Driver button and install the appropriate driver for the appropriate client computers which will connect to your printer. Spool print documents so program finishes printing faster is a sensible option to select, and it's the default. It just means that when a user submits a print job, it runs as a background process, the rendering process, so that they can get on doing something else. If you specify to print direct to printer, which is the alternative option, then whilst a physical printing process is taking place, the application is locked and is doing that particular physical printing, so the user is unable to get on with something else. If you choose spool, you've got 2 sub-options. You can either start to print as soon as the first page is rendered, that's the default, start printing immediately, or you can hold on to the entire print job until the entirety of it has been rendered and then print the whole thing in one go. The only reason to change this until start printing after last page is spooled is if you want other users to be able to print their shorter jobs whilst the large job is busy rendering. Because obviously once the first page starts to print, then nothing else can print until the entire job is complete. Beneath all of that, you've got a number of other options: hold mismatched documents, print spooled documents first, keep printed documents, and enable advanced printing features. Hold mismatched documents is so that anything that's sent to the printer with incorrect settings in terms of perhaps paper size or letterhead or any of those sorts of settings that would cause a physical printing error are held onto. They're not submitted to the print device because that would cause problems, so they're held in the queue and other jobs can go past that in the queue. Print spooled documents first just means if there are a couple of jobs rendering, whichever one finishes rendering first will be physically printed first. And then if for some reason you want to keep hold of documents after you've printed them, you can select the option to keep printed documents, and that keeps a copy in the print queue. That's quite an unusual option. Advanced printing features is dependent upon the device you're printing to. And you can see some other options at the bottom here, including the ability to enable a separator page between print jobs.